Is World War III possible, or are we already living in the early stages of it, without realizing? Because history has shown us something unsettling. Global wars rarely start with a clear announcement. In 1914, people believed the conflict would stay limited. In 1939, many assumed diplomacy would prevent escalation. But history doesn't shout when a world war begins. It quietly builds through tension, alliances, and miscalculations. Today, the world feels unusually unstable. Nuclear weapons exist, cyber warfare is rising, and geopolitical rivalries are stronger than they've been in decades. So the real question is not just whether World War III could happen, but whether the current global tensions could eventually push humanity toward another catastrophic conflict. To understand that, we first need to look at the state of the world today. One of the biggest ongoing conflicts is the war between Russia and Ukraine. What began as a regional invasion quickly evolved into something far more complicated, because many Western nations, including members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, have been indirectly involved through military aid, intelligence sharing, and economic sanctions. While NATO forces are not directly fighting Russian troops, the level of involvement is significant enough that a single miscalculation, such as a strike hitting a NATO member, could escalate the situation dramatically. If that were to happen, collective defense agreements could trigger a chain reaction involving multiple powerful nations. Another region that constantly raises concerns about global escalation is the Middle East. Tensions involving Israel and Iran have periodically intensified through missile exchanges, proxy conflicts, and strategic competition across the region. The Middle East has historically been a geopolitical flashpoint because global powers have deep interests there, from energy resources to military positioning. When conflicts erupt in this region, they rarely remain isolated for long because many international actors have stakes in the outcome. Perhaps the most frequently discussed scenario when analysts talk about a potential global conflict involves East Asia. The relationship between China and Taiwan has long been a sensitive geopolitical issue. China views Taiwan as part of its territory, while Taiwan operates with its own government and democratic system. The situation becomes even more complex because the United States has repeatedly indicated it would support Taiwan if its security were threatened. If China attempted to take Taiwan by force and the United States intervened militarily, the world could witness a direct confrontation between two of the most powerful militaries on Earth. That kind of confrontation would not be a regional conflict, it would have global consequences. But modern warfare may not look like the wars of the past. The next global conflict might not begin with tanks crossing borders or missiles launching across continents. It could begin in cyberspace. Cyber warfare has the potential to disable power grids, disrupt communication networks, shut down financial systems, and paralyze entire economies without a single shot being fired. What makes cyber warfare particularly dangerous is that identifying the true source of an attack can be extremely difficult. If a cyber attack cripples a country's infrastructure, and that country retaliates against the wrong adversary, escalation could happen very quickly. There is also the reality of nuclear weapons. Today, several countries possess nuclear arsenals capable of causing unprecedented destruction. Unlike the early 20th century, humanity now has the power to devastate entire civilizations within hours. Yet despite this terrifying capability, nuclear weapons have also created a strange form of stability. Since the end of the Second World War, nuclear-armed nations have avoided direct military conflict with one another because the consequences would be catastrophic for both sides. This concept is often referred to as nuclear deterrence, the idea that the sheer destructive power of these weapons discourages their use. Before we go further, take a moment to think about this question and share your opinion in the comments. Do you believe World War III will happen in our lifetime? Yes or no? Your perspective matters, and it's interesting to see how people around the world view the future of global stability. And if you enjoy exploring complex global issues like this, consider subscribing for more deep dive discussions. Now let's address the core question. Is a third world war actually likely? Despite the tensions we've discussed, many experts believe a full-scale global war is less likely than it appears. One major reason is nuclear deterrence. The existence of nuclear weapons creates a powerful incentive for leaders to avoid direct military confrontation with other nuclear powers. The consequences of such a war would be so devastating that even the most aggressive governments recognize the risks of escalation. Another important factor is economic interdependence. The modern world economy is deeply interconnected. Countries rely on global trade networks for energy, manufacturing, technology, and food supply. A large-scale global war would disrupt these networks and collapse economies worldwide, including the economies of the countries initiating the conflict. In other words, modern war is not only destructive militarily but also economically self-defeating. There is also a strategic shift in how major powers compete. Instead of fighting each other directly, they often engage in proxy conflicts, economic competition, technological rivalry, and influence campaigns. These indirect confrontations can still be dangerous, but they reduce the likelihood of direct military clashes between superpowers. In many ways, global competition today resembles a complex chess match rather than the total wars of the past. However, even if a global war is unlikely, it is still important to consider what individuals and societies should do if tensions were to escalate dramatically. The first step is staying informed while avoiding misinformation. In the modern information environment, false narratives and propaganda can spread quickly, creating unnecessary panic or misunderstanding. Verifying sources and relying on credible information is essential. Another important step is building personal and community resilience. Economic stability, emergency preparedness, and strong local networks can help societies navigate uncertain times. History has shown that communities that cooperate and support each other tend to recover from crises more effectively than those that become divided or isolated. At the same time, citizens play an important role in shaping the political environment of their countries. Participating in democratic processes, supporting diplomacy, and encouraging leaders to prioritize peaceful solutions can influence how governments approach international conflicts. Public opinion often shapes the decisions that leaders make on the global stage. If the world ultimately avoids another global war, it will likely be because of several key factors. Diplomacy remains one of the most powerful tools for preventing escalation. Many negotiations between rival nations happen quietly behind closed doors, away from public attention, and these diplomatic efforts often prevent conflicts from growing larger. International agreements, arms control treaties, and communication channels between governments can reduce misunderstandings and help maintain stability. Economic cooperation also plays a stabilizing role. When nations benefit from trade and shared prosperity, they have stronger incentives to resolve disputes without resorting to violence. Global institutions and international dialogue forums may not be perfect, but they provide spaces where disagreements can be addressed before they escalate into open conflict. So in the end, is World War III possible? The honest answer is yes. The tensions, rivalries, and risks are real. But possibility does not mean inevitability. Humanity has learned painful lessons from the wars of the past, and those lessons continue to influence how nations approach conflict. Today, the world may feel unstable, but history also shows that diplomacy, cooperation, and cautious leadership can prevent catastrophe. The future of global peace will ultimately depend on the decisions made by leaders, institutions, and societies across the world. The choices being made today, in diplomacy rooms, government offices, and international negotiations, will shape whether humanity moves toward conflict or cooperation. History may warn us about the dangers of global war, but it also reminds us that the future is not predetermined. It is shaped by the actions we take today.